Hey guys, thanks for joining today on Entrepreneur, where, hey, we're just talking about business opportunities, scaling, how we can help you just grow and build. A couple weeks ago, we did a great live with Jillian teaching all about finding real estate opportunities on Zillow. So it just made perfect sense to kind of roll right into talking about STR, short-term rentals, Airbnbs, VRBOs, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, it's been an awesome investment for a lot of people for a long time. So we're actually bringing on the biggest pro in the industry, Mike Sjogren. Thanks for being here today. Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited. It's going to be fun.
Definitely. Well, and just to kind of kickstart, could you share a little bit about your background so we actually know who the heck you are?
Yeah, so I'll keep it brief, but I'm based out of Boston, Mass. I was a CPA for 10 years and always knew I wanted to get a dad, poor dad in my 20s. And then everything changed about 8 or 9 years ago now when my son was born, and he was born with a very rare lung disease called interstitial lung disease. And basically anytime he fell asleep, he needed to be on oxygen. And it was a pretty crazy time. And we spent weeks upon weeks at Boston Children's Hospital.
Wow.
And at a certain point, I ran out of vacation time. I ran out of sick time. I had all these hospital bills piling up, and I had to leave my wife and my baby in the hospital to go back to my accountant cubicle to trade time for money. And I was just really, do we cuss on this?
That's
or
tough.
I'll keep it PG.
Cuss away.
All right. So I was just really pissed at myself, honestly, for putting my family and myself in that situation. And the day that I had to leave,
you cussing, we need to work on the damn.
I'm trying to keep it somewhat PG here. I know we're live streaming in different places. I don't want to get myself in trouble, but.
All right, guys, completely ignore that. I apologize in advance. I should have said this is PG-13. Oh my God, I made a mistake and cussed 3 times. I think that pushes it into rated R. I don't know.
All right. So anyway, I had to leave him there. And, I told my wife the day that I left, I said, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to find a way to build us a business that gives us the income we want without ever having to trade time for money again. And, this is back in like 2016. And I ended up meeting a gentleman in a mastermind group that was doing Airbnbs back then. Mm-hmm. And what he was doing is he was renting these apartments from landlords and then furnishing them and then re-renting them on Airbnb. And
without even buying them.
No, he was just renting and re-renting. So nowadays that's known as rental arbitrage. And he wasn't telling the landlords what he was doing. And it just felt kind of shady, honestly. But the business model made sense of taking a property and renting it by the night instead of by the year, and you can charge a premium. And so, I said, this is our shot. This is what we're going to do. So I pulled a loan out of my 401k, got a 0% interest credit card, and we bought a little 2-bedroom cabin up in the mountains in New Hampshire. Off we went. 6 weeks later, it was renting out just like this guy said. It was cash flowing about $1,500 a month, and we'd use it, on the weekends here and there, and it was really cool. But I couldn't live off of $1,500 a month, and I needed to keep scaling. And so I thought, what if I just started partnering with investors that had multifamilies, and instead of renting them long term, I could run them as short term and just take a little piece off the top for the extra work.
Okay, it's literally like you turned apartments into a hotel, it sounds like.
Yeah. Small ones,
Brilliant.
Right? Like duplexes, 3 families, 4plexes, things like that. It took me a while to get some traction. It took me 9 months before I got a yes on that model. But once I did, it took off pretty quick. And within a year and a half, we had 15 properties in 5 different states. And I was able to quit my job, get my wife out of her job, and retire my mom. And then we were off to the races. And That's awesome. Since then, we've gone on to grow it. I've done 3 hotel deals. 2 of them I've got ownership in. 1 of them I ran for a couple years. And as of right now, we've got 82 doors across 3 states. And I own 72 of them, I think, or at least have an ownership interest in 72. So this business has completely changed my life. For forever grateful.
That's
I've been
amazing.
out of my job for over 5 years now, and I could never dream of going back. So it's been
Well,
a
you
wild
say
ride.
you've been out of your job, but I know that's a lie. You just started a whole nother business, and now you're running the entrepreneurial lifestyle, still teaching, training, educating on short-term rentals. And I know your website, y'all should all check it out. I'll throw it up here. But thank you so much for the question. We're totally going to get to it. And if anybody else has any questions, throw it in chat. We're going to cover it all. But I know you have a business, kind of a mastermind educational platform, STR Secrets. It's strsecrets.com. Can you share a little bit about that? And I'm going to throw it up on the screen too.
Yeah. So the irony was when I always loved teaching, I always figured I'd be, retire as like an accounting professor one day after I finished my CPA thing years ago. But when I was doing a lot of prospecting to grow the co-hosting or the management side of the properties, a lot of people were like, wow, this is really cool, but I want to do it myself. And I kept hearing that over and over and over again. And then I started with a little, group of people that I was just essentially mentoring to help them stand up their own, short-term rental business. And that has grown quite a bit over the years. And to date, we've helped over 400 people build 6-figure profit STR businesses to get out of their jobs and, find true time freedom. And I absolutely love it. Like at this point, that's what I spend 98% of my time on. I've built great teams over the years, and the property stuff does not really take much of my time anymore. And so that's a lot of my focus is on the coaching. So we have a few different programs. One is to really help people scale up a short-term rental business. We've got one that's focused on helping people get their first hotel deal. And then we've got our 7-figure boardroom, which is like our high-level mastermind for 7-figure operators. So.
Love it. And I just really want to point out to everyone, less than a decade ago, you started a entrepreneurial career. I mean, just get off the wagon and just, what's that saying? Whatever. You jumped off, you rolled with it. You started as an active real estate investor, acquiring real estate, or even better, not acquiring the real estate and still benefiting from cash flow monthly just by being brilliant. And then, hey, you got that rolling, you got passive cash flow coming in. That's everybody's goal. So then, hey, you double down, you start a business, your entrepreneurial career. It has grown enormously. At this point, how many students do you have?
Currently, we have around 700 active. So
okay,
yeah, decent size, not the biggest, but it's good. It's a lot of fun.
I mean, let's be honest. For any educational platform, now we're talking about school size. That's huge. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So,
thank you.
We do have a question. I totally want to make sure that we're responsive. So if anybody else has questions,
yeah.
But it's really about this rental arbitrage. I mean, that is something that
I never
literally
did arbitrage, in full transparency. I never did like the rent it and re-rent it. I never liked that model, honestly. And people used to give me a lot of flack for it. And then I kind of got the last laugh after COVID because a lot of them went out of business. But to me, it just never made sense.
First, and then let's get into the negatives of it, because it's an easy way to get into it. But if nobody should get into it, what should they be looking out for?
I mean, so there's 3 different ways that you can play this game. You can go out and buy real estate, right? And then you run your own properties. You can rent somebody else's apartment or house and then re-rent it on Airbnb and those platforms. That's called rental arbitrage, where you pay rent to that owner every single month and you pay to furnish it and handle all the expenses and everything else. Or you can co-host or manage that property for that owner, where you take anywhere from 20 to 25% of the revenue as your fee, and all the you don't put any money into it. Like the owner invests in the upgrades and the furnishings and everything else. So you're essentially just a service provider. And that's the route that I went, because in full transparency, I didn't even have the cash after we did that first deal to even furnish another one. I know that there's a lot of people online that talk about, oh, I can furnish these places for like $3,000. No, you can't. Like that's a crock. You're not going to furnish anything that looks halfway decent for $3,000 to $5,000. It's just not, it's not going to happen. So I focused on that service-based model and continued to scale that. And if you do a good job, you start getting more referrals and you start growing and growing and growing. And then at a certain point, we were making more cash flow and actually had some money that I could go out and start buying properties again. So it just has a snowball effect. But those are the 3 ways that you can play the game.
Well, let me summarize what I heard and then answer Kajo's question the worst way possible. You can buy real estate, of course, we all know that. But you can either start a business where you're basically acting like a property manager. Very parallel to that, but you have a unique focus, and that 20-25%. I've seen it even higher than that, but now we're actually talking about a business play, not a real estate play, where you could lease and then just try to release, mark it up, etc. But you're literally taking the risk and putting in the expenses, maybe not to buy real estate, but to furnish, to market, all of that. Where if you're doing the more property management style, you just don't have those expenses, but you still have about the same upside. Am I saying 100%. It right?
Because let's just say it's a 1-bedroom and say it costs you $10,000 to furnish it soup to nuts with all the linens and the furniture and everything. Say it's $10,000. You pay first month's, last month's rent, security deposit, plus that you're looking at $15,000 to $20,000 out of pocket to get started. And let's just say that you're netting $1,000 a month, which is great. Regular apartment, you might net $200 to $400 a month. So you're more than double that. It's going to take you a year to 2 years to make your money back. So like from a cash on cash, that's great, but you're not getting any of the other tax benefits that you get from owning it and things like that. So to me, it just didn't make sense to put money into properties that I didn't own. So we advised the clients, we would do the designs, we'd do the build outs, we'd do all the work, but they would pay for that. And, we would just take a piece of the revenue after it was running. So that's just how we did it. And it worked out well for us and for the owners.
So I guess long story short is, Kajo, don't care if the landlords say yes, but if they do say yes, maybe they'll say yes to you actually managing the opportunity and make way more money at way less risk than doing it yourself. So a great answer of doesn't matter, just don't do it. However, you do have to find the landlords, the owners that are interested in that. Do you have any advice of like, okay, well, I'm brand new. I'm trying to figure this out. How do I do it? And I'm sure you teach it in your courses still. We get back to that, but how did you get started? Like anybody get started?
I mean, how I got started is not what I would do now necessarily. Because again, I was an accountant. I didn't know anything about marketing or sales. I was a wizard with a calculator, but like communication and sales was not my forte. So I tried a lot of different things. At the beginning, I'd go on Craigslist and Zillow and all these places and look at properties that were for rent. And then I would do my best to get in contact with the owner and be like, hey, do you know you can make more money with this renting it by the night than by the year? Is that something that you'd be interested in? And, doing a lot of cold outbound. Then I started hosting monthly meetups where I was teaching people about short-term rentals and Airbnb. Then I was, working referral networks. I was posting about it online about what we were doing and what we were looking for. Just kind of a shotgun approach of trying everything. One of the best ways that our students get deals now is they go on a site called AirDNA, which is basically a data site that pulls all the data from Airbnb and Vrbo. And they just look for underperforming properties. So people that already have short-term rentals, and ideally they're, working with some of the larger property management companies. And I won't throw stones, but a lot of the bigger ones are terrible. And we just look for some of those because you don't have to sell them on short-term rentals. They're already in the game, but they're not performing as well as they would like to. So it's like, hey, here's how we could perform better for you. Give them a breakdown, what their property should be doing versus what it's doing now, and walk them through all the steps. And we call it our UI method, our underserved investor. And we've added hundreds of those over the last couple of years using that approach.
Amazing. And now I know if you're trying to sell anybody on anything, you have to come from a position of authority. And even if I have, Joe, this is for you, have that property management experience and you've been a landlord in the past, but you've never done this new opportunity, how are you positioning? Hey, are you really interested? Because we've got this great idea.
Yeah. So some of the listeners may not like this, but I'm going to say it anyway. So one thing that I firmly believe is real estate is a business. I don't care if it's short-term rentals, hotels, multifamily. You are running a business. It just happens to be run through a piece of property. And so if you don't know how to run that business, you need to get educated on how to run that business. And if you're a DIYer, cool, go gamble with your own money and learn the lessons the hard way. But don't go gamble with somebody else's money. You know, if you're going to be a stockbroker or an attorney or whatever profession, you have to go to school and get certified to make sure that you know what you're doing before you start messing with people's lives. So if you're just going to go out there and start managing properties for other people and you have no idea what you're doing, that's not cool in my opinion. And whether you work with me or I don't care if it's with me or somebody else, but you need to go invest in some education to learn how to run this business. It's way more competitive now than when I got started. I promise you that. And to me, it's just unethical if you're just going to gamble with somebody else's property. But if you have some money and you want to go figure it out on your own, like I did at the beginning, cool. Like you be your own guinea pig and, learn by fire, but don't gamble with somebody else's property. And so either invest in some type of education, some type of community coach, or go do it on your own for a property for yourself. Then you've earned your stripes and you will show up more confident when you're talking to potential clients.
Totally makes sense. Well, since we're still talking about, I'm just interested in getting in the business, and I know you really help with that. Back to what you're doing with your educational platform, STR Secrets. Is there a program for the, I don't know anything, but I'm really interested that you're doing?
Yeah. So we run a free Facebook group. I'll throw it in the chat. It's completely free. It's got about 10,000 people in it now. And we do live training in there every single week for free for newbies and like mid-level type of hosts. So like if you're brand new, join that Facebook group, listen to my podcast, STR Secrets. Like there's a ton of free education that way. And this isn't like salesy type of like trainings. This is like actionable stuff of like, hey, do this, then do this, then do this. And here's some free resources to get you started. Like at the end of the day, even if my goal is to just make sure that you know what you're doing and don't do a bad deal. Like don't get yourself into a bad deal and don't get an owner into a bad deal. So we do a ton of free education around that, how to get leads. There's really 3 things that you need to do. You need to know how to get more properties, get more bookings, and then get more time freedom. And that's what a lot of people don't talk about. And what you're alluding to, Nate, is yes, you can get out there and start making some really good money, like replace, a full-time salary fairly quickly. But if you don't build it the right way with process and systems and team, like people, as you scale, you're just building yourself another job. Now you get to be your own boss, but I will tell you from firsthand experience, if you don't build it with those things, you're just going to be your own boss and be working 24/7 and never be able to turn the notifications off on this thing, because this is a 24/7 business. Like the guest doesn't care if it's 2 a.m. If the heat's out, they're going to call you. Right. So that's why it's important as you scale, if you really want time freedom.
But it's so important for if you're interested in this active real estate investing operations, this being your future. Big summary is get educated, know what you're doing. And I got to say that the best way to get educated is, it's one thing to go through a class, but masterminds, groups that you get to learn, not from whoever's just instructing, but from the comrades, the people that are around, both that are learning and doing. Ultimately, that's how you're going to grow. Maybe you find a mentor that's been there and can help you along. But that's where I really want to emphasize, if you're interested in this space, for God's sakes, go join the STR Secrets Facebook group. All right, to go a little bit of a different direction, I deal with a lot of real estate investment sponsors, syndicators, guys that are raising capital. Do you see this a lot in the Airbnb, the short-term rental space?
I do, and if I'm honest, it makes me nervous, and I'll
Fair enough.
explain why. Um, you and I have talked offline about this a bunch, about raising money for hotels and funds and stuff like that. The thing that scares me for a lot of people raising money for single families is, in theory, it sounds good, but the number one question you should be asking yourself is, how am I going to get the investors' money out? And when people tell me, well, I'm just going to, they're going to get cash flow every month once it's up, I'm like, that is not a good plan for getting investors' money out. And with residential real estate, that property in Florida, I more than doubled the income on that thing after I bought it and fixed it with my wife. But it doesn't mean it's worth double. If anything, I'm probably like break even from an equity standpoint on it at this point in the cycle. But with commercial or hotels, you do that and it's valued based off of its net income or net operating income. So you have a lot more control over the value. So it's easier if you do a good job, you force that value, then you can go to the bank and refinance, or you can sell. It just gives you a lot more options to get the investor money out. You're just a lot more limited on the single families to really push the value. So you can absolutely do it. And I have friends that have done it very successfully over the years. But you really got to know your numbers, and you got to know your construction and renovation numbers really well as well. Because if you have some overages, that just throws everything off. So you can totally do it. But to me, I'd rather raise money for a larger deal, a bigger pie that everybody can win, instead of trying to figure out, how do I carve out enough of this single family house that it's worth my time and this investor's time.
So I guess if you're really trying to do more of an investment model, it could make way more sense. If they want to buy the property, they can buy the property. They get the benefit of, you say, maybe equity stays the same. Traditionally, looking at history, the equity has grown. So really what you're doing is just creating potentially additional cash flow, benefiting from that. And now your investor gets the benefit of owning the real estate and getting that equity growth there if it happens, but now it's their risk versus collectively the partnership's risk.
Yeah. Because if you get in a position like we were the last 2 years where interest rates go up, you're at the mercy of comparable sales. And so you just have a lot less control over the value of that property. You've got less options.
And thank you for bringing up the interest rates. It is tough to find good real estate deals out there. This is a different spin, different direction. Are people still finding good deals to put their own money, to buy their own properties, in the STR space?
They are, but it's like the needle in the haystack thing. And it's been like that for me on the hotel side, where you look at 100 deals to maybe find one. And it's funny. My assistant is actually looking at a property right now, and we road tripped it down to Florida last week. So we had a lot of time, and I'm like trying to like brain dump into her, like all these tactics and strategies. And, let's just make up some numbers and say that they were asking, say, $850,000 for this property. And I'm doing the math with her on what it's going to take to fix it up. I'm like, you can't be into this thing for more than 900 grand, or it's not going to make sense. So I'm like, you need to go in there and offer 700. And I could just see her like, oh, that seems so low. Right. But when you know your numbers, I tell people, if you don't get a little uncomfortable on your first offer, you've offered too much. Especially today. You go back a couple of years when people were going 200 grand over asking, all cash, no contingencies and inspections, a lot harder to do that. Now we've got a lot more leverage because properties aren't moving. So you have way more leverage to just be aggressive and say, hey, listen, I like your deal, but with an 8% interest rate, this is what the math shows. So like, this is what I'll do. So you just got to be be comfortable with other people being uncomfortable, and just offer lower, and never never bend on your buy box. Don't get emotional just because you want to do the deal and then you overpay for it. Then you're screwed. You can't fix overpaying for a deal.
Makes perfect sense. In terms of, again, we've got interest rates, they're high. For a lot of these deals that I've worked on, not necessarily single family homes, definitely not STRs. People are going to like hard money lenders, getting maybe a year loan, 2-year loan, hoping the interest rates come down. Do you see much use of hard money lenders in the STR space?
I mean, I've used DSCR loans, which isn't necessarily hard money. It's just non-conventional. So they're lending based on the cash flow of the property, and your interest rates will be higher. And so when you get to the point where you leave your W-2 and you go full time, those first 2 years, nearly impossible to get a traditional loan because now you're out on your own and you're more risky to the bank. So you can use something like DSCR where you pay a little bit more in interest, but they're giving you a loan based on the cash flow of the property.
Right? And along that same lines, I mean, it's a huge risk. And so just agree with you entirely. We still see a lot of fix and flips that will leverage hard money. The days of, hey, we're just going to get it closed, get a bridge loan, and then refi later, it's actually causing a lot of foreclosures right now. Short sales with the lenders. So definitely want to just emphasize, watch out, be smart, and the takeout shouldn't be, oh, interest rates are going to come down, so it's going to be cheaper.
Right. And I will admit, I'm a very conservative investor. And so like one of my mottos is I'd rather lose a good deal than get a bad deal. Right. So I'm always more like on defense than on offense, I would say. So like I've probably missed out on some good deals because it just, whatever, I'm maybe too conservative, but I'm okay with that. Like I sleep better at night that way. So I'm very, very, very conservative with my underwriting.
I mean, it just makes sense. And I love the saying, better to not have a good deal than to have a bad deal.
Yeah. Rather lose a good deal than get a bad deal.
Makes sense. Let's see what my saying is, and I'm sure this applies as well. It's always going to cost more and take longer. So just
100%.
plan on that.
100%.
Like that's the only, like we don't have theories or hypotheses. That's a law of real estate.
Every time.
Love it. And if we could talk about, I know you're getting more into the hospitality and the hotel space. The way that I really see that is traditionally people have gotten single family home rental portfolios. And then at some point, oh, the light bulb, let's just condense it all onto one property. All this multifamily deals going around. Can you kind of explain how the hotels deals work and what's the motivations there?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been in hotels now, actually 5 years this month. We got our first one in February 2020. And a co-host or a management client actually brought me the deal and was like, hey, do you think your systems would work at scale on this little 13-room boutique inn? And I was like, yeah, I think so, and it did. I learned a lot there. I definitely got my teeth kicked in that first year, learning a lot about running those. But what I say all the time is short-term rentals got me financially independent. They were able to generate cash flow pretty quickly, and they were able to get me out of my job, right? Financial independence. So STRs got me financially independent. Hotels really started to ramp up my wealth building because you just have so much more control over the valuation, right? So the way that commercial real estate is valued is based on the net operating income. So there's a simple formula, bear with me here, but you take your net operating income divided by what's called a capitalization rate. So national average cap rate on hotels is like 9.4%. So for every dollar that I increase profit on the hotel, and I'm using profit loosely, NOI, I get a $10.63 bump in value. right? So for every
Can you say that
dollar,
again? It's so huge.
it's massive. And this is why I'm just trying to do some quick math so people understand like why this is wild. For every dollar I increase the profit, I get $10.63 in equity, in value creation. So if you add $100,000 in profit, you just added $1,063,000 in value to that property. So like the numbers get silly very quickly, especially when you're, acquiring some of these tired, I call them like mom and pop inns and boutiques that they've owned them for 40 years. They look like grandma's house. They've got good bones, but they're dated. They need a facelift and they need tighter systems and operations. And when you get in there and you fix those, you can create an insane amount of value very, very quickly. So like you're generating cash flow, but to me, the kicker is the equity side and the wealth building side on the back end. Now, there's pros and cons. You also have a lot more money on the line. And to Nate's point, if STRs take long and cost more, hotels definitely take way longer than you think and cost way more than you think. So you want to be very conservative with your underwriting. These projects can take years. Like we're still finishing a project that we closed over 2 years ago. Like they just take longer. But the value creation on deals like that is just ridiculous. But I will say you want to learn how to walk before you run, right? So I was running 15 properties across 5 different states before I got my first, little boutique. So I had my operations and systems and my team pretty tight. And then I was able to transfer a lot of those skills and then adapt them into the hotel space.
I gotta admit, I am a massive fan of hotels and hospitalities. Even as the active real estate investor, the syndicator, after all the multifamily is kind of topped off, you can't really push rents anymore. And so people are looking for new directions. And for everybody that's out there, hotels, it's just, you get it at a way cheaper price per foot compared to, multifamily for sure.
Yeah.
But I think what, Mike, you're really pointing out, which is great, there's a lot more business acumen that is required rather than just hire a property manager, call it a day, and hope to collect some checks.
Yeah. And there's just a lot of opportunity coming right now with all the baby boomers that are retiring, right? So there's a ton of them that have owned these things and they're just looking to retire and sell, sail off into the sunset. And the cool thing with commercial, you guys that follow Pace Morby and a lot of those creative finance guys, seller financing is a normal thing in the commercial world. Like it's normal to get seller financing on deals. Like that's completely normal. And it's talked about all the time. So there's a lot of those opportunities, especially when you're dealing with folks that just want to retire and get a consistent, revenue stream every month to go travel and live off the rest of their days. Like there's a lot of good opportunity for that. And not a lot of people talk about it. So I'm just like playing in the shadows right now, just looking for more and more deals. But I'm telling you right now, within the next 2 to 3 years, it will be a massive wave because a lot of those Airbnb folks are going to be leveling up into the hotel space. Took Airbnb a few years, but from when I started in 2017 to where it is now, it's everywhere. I feel like hotels will be that next asset class for sure.
Again, we're thinking the exact same. That's why I'm a huge fan of hospitalities and hotels. But I know it is like a different type of business model, and generally people don't have experience. But I know that
I didn't mention this earlier, Nate, but I actually just did like a 90-minute training last week to talk about some of the differences. So I'll throw that link in here for you if people are interested in that.
Yeah.
Again, it's not for the newbies, but if you've got some experience, it'll be good.
In terms of training, different type of deal, different type of experience needed, different financing and different amount of money. Like you need a lot of money, maybe more investors actually involved at that point. you have some training programs and masterminds that's really focused on the hotels. And thank you so much. I was blessed to be able to meet a lot of your members. And I got to say, they were very impressive. One thing that really hit me, and another thing just for people to think about, is quite a few of them seemed like they were just buying a big plot of land.
Yeah.
And going, cabin by cabin, Airstream by Airstream, like had some more continuous growth rather than buying it all at once, but still having that resort type appeal to it.
Really blending the two worlds is the best I can describe it, of like having the scale of a hotel blended with like the privacy of a short-term rental or a vacation rental, right? So like the mini cabin resort or the Airstream resort, or like, I won't say her name, but somebody that's very well known in the STR space. She's got a sweet development deal going on right now that's massive. Like over 100 units, like just huge, but like a whole resort development play. And again, as long as you have the right people in the right seats, you can execute on that. I think a big thing going from STRs to commercial and just bigger stuff in general is shifting your mindset from how to who. So like you said, you'd never get into a business now without the right who or the right partner. Same thing on development. Like if I'm looking at a deal in Palm Springs with somebody that you've met, I'm like, hey, who is executing on this? Who's managing the construction? Who's doing the design? Who's managing the operations? Like, who are these people? Because you need a bigger team to just handle that size deal. And the good thing is there's enough money to go around on a project that everybody wins. So getting out of how do I do everything to who do I need on my team will help you go so much further.
Absolutely love it. And you mentioned that you had properties in multiple states. I mean, that's beyond just your neighborhood. What difference is it in managing properties that are across the United States versus in your backyard?
It's just more of a comfort zone thing, and just making sure that you really understand that market and the specific neighborhoods. Right. I think this is the misconception. Managing it is easy. You're just building good boots on the ground teams. As long as you have good housekeepers, good contractors, good trades that can go and fix it up and keep eyes on it for you, that's the easy part. The hard part is making sure that you really know street by street, neighborhood by neighborhood, where is the best fit for this product so that it actually fills it up. Like you really got to know your market and know the neighborhoods, and know who your avatar or your client's going to be that is going there, so that you design a product and a property that caters to that client.
Could you share a little bit about what your training or mastermind specifically for hotels looks like?
Yeah. So it's called Boutique Hotel Secrets, and all of my programs follow a similar format, and it's just based on business, right? So I use this acronym CASPER a lot, right? So the C is for clarity, getting clear about why do you want a hotel? What is the right size deal? What markets do you want to be in? Really defining your buy box. So getting clarity, then acquisitions. How do you find the deals? How do you negotiate the deals? How do you underwrite the deals? I was calculating this out. I spent over 10 grand to have this deal analyzer built, because there's just a lot to it on the commercial side. And I've gone through multiple iterations, and understanding the numbers and how to analyze a deal is huge. So going through that, what type of funding, you have a couple of videos in there that you did for our boardroom that I popped in around how to raise money the right way, how to work with you guys, and how you can structure funds versus syndications and the different types of raises so that you're raising money the right way. And then you get into the systems, what systems do you need? I have my entire SOP playbook that we've used to run hotels, so you can rip that off and make some adjustments based on your business, and just really like pull the curtain back on what does it look like to find it, fund it, fix it, fill it, flip it, all of the 5 F's, as I call it, behind real estate. How do you go through and execute on that? And the biggest piece, in my opinion, the education's great. And we have group coaching calls every single week where I'm involved and other coaches. that have taken down a lot of deals. But the biggest piece, to your point, is the community side of when you're in a group of like-minded people that are all actively doing hotel deals, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So like it's going to happen because it's like positive peer pressure, or you leave because you're just uncomfortable and you're too afraid to take action. One of those two things happens every time, which is why I continue to invest in masterminds with people that are way ahead of me, because it pulls me up and keeps challenging me to think bigger and get out of my comfort zone.
And I think that you nailed it, and just really want to emphasize, you're always growing. There's always more to learn. And masterminds where you're surrounded by people that have both done it, are learning it, and mentors to be able to lean on, it's so important. And it doesn't matter where you are in your business life. For God's sakes, join some masterminds in areas that you want to grow in and learn. So, Mike, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Honestly, probably the easiest is to just send me a DM on Instagram. I'm pretty active on Instagram. We're all over the place, but Instagram's probably the easiest. It's just at Mike.Sjogren. And put that in the chat too. Or again, if you join the Facebook group, if you're interested in the STRs, I know you guys posted the link in the comments here. Or for the hotel stuff, you can go to hotels.strsecrets.com for that training. And then you can just reach out. But I'm active all over social for sure.
Love it. TJ, there you go. Check out the Facebook group and reach out to Mike directly. It's time. Mike, do you have any final words before we jump?
I'll throw it out there, TJ. You want my email? Just email michael@strsecrets.com. That's my personal email. So
I will tell you that I've emailed you there and you've never responded once. So yeah. There you go. There's the email. Don't expect any reply.
So Beth, my assistant, will monitor that email. So as Nate says, you may not get a response right away, but I will see it. So just get clear about what you want, right? There's no right or wrong way to do business. And what I would encourage you to do is just get clear about what you specifically want and what life do you want to have. And don't compare yourself to Nate or me or anybody else. Maybe you just want to have a couple properties that make, some extra bucks to do those vacations and you like doing what you're doing at your job. There's no right or wrong way. There's no comparison. So just be true to you, and whatever it is, just pursue it and be okay getting out of your comfort zone to go after what you want.
Well, Mike, truly appreciate you being here today. Man, the education and information that everybody is able to take away from this. Thank you so much. Everybody should definitely follow up with your Facebook group, because there's more questions and you're the guy to answer it. For being here today. My pleasure. Jillian, I did not see your question. I'm sorry. Welcome to send me an email. That won't be responded to. No, I will respond. Jillian is the co-host of Entrepreneur, so she's heavily involved with this. Actually did the Zoom training, the Zillow training a few weeks ago. So she's definitely somebody to check out and would be very beneficial to your community as well. So long story short, hey, everybody. Jillian, we're going to make it happen. Awesome. Well, Nate, thank you again, man. This was a lot of fun, and happy to do it again anytime. I love talking about this stuff. So. Well, we definitely will. I appreciate everybody for joining. Thank you so much for the questions, and we'll see you in a week when we are talking all about building your business. Bye, guys.